Okay, so retreat is over, and we have a little bit of a dust up at retreat between some moms group ladies. I am not there. Brandy co-leads that retreat, and there's an issue with some of moms group. We have, we've merged the moms group, OG moms group, and big mamas, group of ladies, and everything at the end of 2016 is kind of cohesive up until we have my surprise birthday party. And then things kind of start to unravel. And you would think that it would be more like between the OG girls and Big Mama's girls in the beginning. But this dust up is between some OG moms. And it carries into VBS.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
What's a place there shouldn't be abuse? Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
So VBS 2017 is Maker Fun Factory. Brandy and I lead this. If you ask Tom, he's going to tell you that Pastor Young Gun led this VBS because women leading.
If there's a man, why would we let women do anything?
Yeah, but Pastor Young Gun is very much like, no, you girls got this. Like, it's fine. And Pastor Young Gun doesn't want to lead it because he wants to lead a group with the kids. Yeah. He wants to be out there talking, with the workers.
But no, it's just so funny how, like, on paper, Young Gun is the leader, and even he's like, I'm not leading. I'm just I don't know, like your sponsor almost. I'll be your male sponsor. Like, he doesn't think that, but it's almost like, yeah, it's like, you ladies can do it as long as you're under the authority of a man. So you're more than welcome. And like, so it's just, I know he doesn't mean it that way, but that's how the system is set up. And it's like, everybody kind of plays in it, even if they don't personally believe. They don't necessarily not change it.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, we've only been doing VBS for, a handful of years. Like, it's not like, I mean, we're coming up on, the church has been around for 19 years and we've only done VBS for 4 or 5 years at this point. And so the way things go, the trainings and all of this kind of stuff, it's very like every year we kind of like, okay, last year, we learned this, so let's do this better next year, trying to learn and grow. And so we really felt like this year we were going to, if you're not leading something, you make suggestions, but ultimately the person who's leading it is the final say, right? And so this is the year where Brandy and I are leading. And so Brandy and I are like, okay, these things that we felt like this is what we need to do, we are now the ones to make those decisions. And so we start talking to Pastor Young Gun, and it's like, no, like, we should have meetings and there should be training. And so then it becomes very much like we said in the last episode for you, like, it gets to a point where Tom doesn't need to come and and lay out his expectations. Charlotte doesn't need to say you have to say or do XYZ. These are the standards. You know the standards. So Brandy and I implement the standards to everyone who signs up for VBS. Everyone has to go through this type of like how to share the gospel with little kids. Everyone has to go. And I mean, there was some trainings, but it was never like we said the words, if you do not do this training, you do not get to serve.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we made it very much like, if you cannot devote this much time into learning and training to do something the way God wants you to do, then we don't need you.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, how arrogant does that sound?
I mean, when you put that spin on it,
that
definitely wasn't. It was
yeah.
No, if you were you have to be trained and equipped to usher in the next generation of believers.
Yeah. And I couldn't understand why this made people so mad and why they were like, so many people didn't like me. And I couldn't understand why. Like, all I'm trying to get you to do is to conform to the system. Yeah, damn it.
Do what you're supposed to do so we can do what we need to do.
Just drink the effing Kool-Aid so we can teach little kids about Jesus.
Open up!
Yeah. So, 100% that was my mindset going into all of this. Brandy and I definitely led this VBS kind of similar to how we were doing children's ministry. Like, I took on the big kid side, she took on the little kid side. And I will say this was like the VBS where really big kids and little kids like ran the most cohesive, just because we had that mindset going in. But I mean, the whole VBS the whole premise was there is this mad scientist, right? And he wants to do all of these experiments, and his experiments go awry and he can never get them right. And at the end, it's because, well, you haven't been asking God for help. God is the maker. And so it's always called Maker Fun Factory. And so God makes everything. And so any decision that you make, you have to consult God. So no, mad scientist, your experiments weren't working because you didn't ask God how to do your experiment. And so we teach these little kids, basically, we're going to put all this pressure on them that, like, if it doesn't matter what you want in life, if you're not asking God, it's all going to go to hell, and your dreams don't matter. It's all what God has planned for you. Right. And, so we get Steve, if you remember back on like the California trip episode, we talked about Steve. Steve actually has just married Beth Moore, the Beth Moore of Come As You Are, has just married her daughter. So we're going to call the daughter DJ. So DJ and Steve have just gotten married. And this is kind of their first big thing that they do as a married couple. And they take on the skit portion of this. And they do a really good job. He's the mad scientist, and she kind of helps with like the props and some worship stuff and everything. And they really do a very, very good job of this. And the kids love it.
Hold on 1 second. Because we haven't talked about Steve and
and DJ.
They got married. Like, we should take a minute and talk about that.
Okay, yeah. So Steve and DJ get married in December of 2016, and they have the full on idealistic Come As You Are wedding.
Yeah, and they have the full support of the church that has encouraged this.
Common Charlotte, yes. Yes. So, she is in her very early 20s at this
Not even.
point.
I think she was 19.
She was 19? Yeah. Okay.
And I don't want to tell their story, but we can tell our perspective. Like, let's just come at it from this was our perspective.
Yeah. So you have this young couple, and they're dating, but in purity culture, you definitely have this mindset.
They're not a young couple.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a grown-ass man who's almost 30 and a girl who's just barely over 18. Like, let's be real, but we painted it that way. Like, I just, this is the whole point of it. We painted it as she grew up. She was in women's ministry. She was speaking to women from the time she was a teenager. We did not allow youth girls to go to retreat, and this youth girl was speaking at women's retreat because we had forced her into this uber maturity. And then you have a guy who's really immature, but who is almost 30. And you just said it. This young couple, the narrative was, and this is all we need to say about this, the narrative was that this couple were a bunch of 19, 20-year-olds. Nobody considered him older than 21, and everybody had pushed her into her 20s. She was 19, and he was 28, or she was 20, barely 20.
Yeah.
Like, and that's as insane as it was that Froggy and I were forced to come into this narrative of being like 18-year-olds too, like, because we have to somehow make that, but people were encouraging this. They were forcing this to happen. She was courting, kind of dating, seeing if she wanted to court a young man who is more in her age bracket, that they had been friends for years. Because he went on the California trip too. It was like this battle for this young girl in our church. Like, she couldn't be single. Like, why not go out and live your life and figure out who you want to be, girl? No, the destiny she had was that she had to be married. That's the issue we're talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it was in full support of the church. And this is something that it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter your age. If you are in a relationship, you're being thrust into marriage. And this is part of the dust up that happens at women's retreat that year between these moms in mom's group. Is you have this mom who had a baby with her boyfriend. They come to church, and at first we think they're married, and then through mom's group it comes out that they're not married, right? And so she is feeling this pressure. I have to be married, because we do this to people. You can't just
be in a happy relationship and have kids and live together. You can't do that and everything just be fine. We have to create a problem because you're not married.
Yes. And so, like, that, for that mom and that couple, she had all of this pressure put on her. So then she's putting pressure on him. He's not ready to be married. He's happy with where he's at. And it's, we shame her. Well, yeah. Why is he going to buy the milk when he could buy the cow when he can get the milk for free? Yeah. And so she's feeling all this pressure. So we do it to multiple couples.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can, just thinking off the top of my head, I bet I can name a dozen couples that were forced into getting married by the pressures put on them from the church.
Oh, yeah. And even still to this day, some of them, it's just not okay. You can be in a relationship. Like, I'm thinking of like couples that I know that have been in a relationship for years. They're fully 100% committed to each other. They have children together. They probably have the most healthiest relationships that I've seen. But it's not okay because you're not married.
And some of these couples have gone on and they're thriving, even, in spite of the fact that Come As You Are really tried everything that they could throw at them to screw these people over. A lot of them have to end up moving away, like far away, in order just to get enough distance enough to figure out who they are as a couple in order to function. And, you know, we do this to people, and we try to force people into these boxes. And by doing that, you're forcing them into things that they're not mature enough, they're not ready for. And it just causes so many more problems. Yeah. And so the fact that DJ and Steve can get married and then turn around and be able to really work very, very well together at this VBS, like, I think is a test. And I don't want Steve to come off as like he was this like child predator.
No. Like, you know, honestly, like they're a
creepy old man.
If they like each other, great. If they're doing well, great. Like, I happen to think they're a cute couple, and I do think they work well together. Like, that's what I've seen from the outside looking in.
Yes.
Do I know that they've probably had challenges? You know, like every marriage? Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the problem. Their marriage, their relationship, whatever, that is not the problem. I am not in any way, shape, or form judging that. What it is it's the fact that, like, how come everybody thought it was okay? Like, nobody said you're too young to get married. Like, there was no expectation put on this girl that she could do anything in her life, but she had to get married. And I know, like, she had dreams and things that she wanted to pursue and be. And those conversations happened outside of the church. Within the church, there was absolutely no concept or understanding that this girl was going to do anything but become a wife and a mother.
Yeah. Well, and there's this double standard of, like, Charlotte's pet she's on like her third marriage at Come As You Are. And every time it's this is going to be the marriage that, you know, like all the crap that they said when you and Froggy got married, you know, they're going to live together. They're going to do ministry together. And, you know, this is going to be the marriage that honors God. And then, you know, that marriage blows up, and it's always the guy's fault. It's never Charlotte's pet's fault. And her life falls apart, and it's awful. And she has to, like, I'm in this season of singleness, and I'm just dating Jesus and all of that. And then she meets the love of her life, and see what happens when you wait and you pray for the right person. But I'll be damned if that guy that she married wasn't the right person again.
It was her redeemer. Just kidding. Let's go back to the beginning of Ruth's story.
Yeah. And so, like,
no, and I'm not saying specifically in any of these little, you know, specific situations. I'm, like I said, I'm not placing judgment, but you can see where this becomes a bigger problem of where we start to condone things that then do become issues that then are very, very wrong. And then we can see why there's things coming out in churches across the world of indecencies that are happening with older men and younger women. I'm not saying that's the case here specifically, because like I said, I know them as a couple and I just think they're adorable. So, I mean, we had to justify it somehow, I guess. But when you really pull back the covers and you look at it, why were we okay with this?
Well, and
wait a few years, be in a relationship. You don't have to get married today.
And when they went to get married, I wasn't like, I didn't even look at their age. I was like you grew up very well off, DJ. Steve grew up in a much more like, you know, lower middle class household. He's had to have some more struggles. You know, you want something, your dad buys it for you for Christmas. He has to work his ass off to make that happen. Like, are you going into this marriage with the expectation of, you know, there's that expectation. I had that conversation with her and I got my butt reamed by Charlotte. That I was out of line for having that conversation with her. And like, I mean, she's even come out and said, like, in like her retreat talks and like things that she's done after she got married, she's like, no one prepared me for the fact that, like, do you know how weird it is to sleep in a bed with a guy? Like, do you know how weird that is to, like, sleep in the same bed with a man? Yeah. And all of us are like, yeah, no, it's like, it's not romantic or cute. Like, you know, they're hairy and they got like toenails and like they're hot and they like, Yeah. And like, but that's the stuff that like, it was so drilled in that there's this Prince Charming and it's going to be beautiful and what God brings together is perfect and holy. And no one was talking about the reality of things. And so when I was trying to talk about the reality of like, okay, like if you're sure, like I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. I just want you to be like
prepared.
Are you prepared that this lifestyle that you are changed, like this is going to be a big deal, a big shift in your lifestyle? And so, and I mean, Charlotte was so mad at me for that because it was like I was trying to talk her into not getting married. And I was like, that's not what I was trying to do at all. I just wanted to make sure like this was something she had thought about. Like, you know, and I mean, when Justin and I went through marriage counseling, we definitely are. The pastor that married us, he went through all of that with us, like things that we hadn't even thought of, like having a conversation about. He's like, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about this? Like, you know, making sure you're on the same page before you get married. And I just feel like there was so much pressure put on them of like, well, you like each other and guys have urges, so you need to get this going as quick as possible because nothing's worse than living in sin. And that's kind of where this like dust up of moms group came from at retreat, leading up to this VBS, was the mom had a baby with her boyfriend. She's feeling pressure to get married. He doesn't want to, so she's talking about it. Moms group all the time, like just constantly, you know.
This is the biggest thing in her life is that she's living in sin.
And she wants everyone to know this isn't her choice. You know, this is not her choice. This is his choice. And I'm sure there was probably some fear of like you in the retreat, like it's going to be taken away from me, you know? And like all she wanted us to say was like, yeah, you're in a really crappy situation and I don't, you know, and like none of us were giving her the answers that she wanted. And so she just kept like returning to it because we weren't validating her feelings. We were throwing nothing Bible, you know, quotes at her, basically telling her like, yeah, you probably really should be married, you know? And so at this retreat, the beer ministry lady. So keep in mind, the woman who just like a year before that had like yelled at someone at a marriage
at the marriage retreat was like, I can't dine with you. Yeah, sinner.
I can't even break bread with you.
And I love
she is put in a room with this lady who like wants to be married and he doesn't want to be married, and you know, they have a kid together and it's just like all this stuff. And so this big argument ensues and she basically, beer ministry lady tells the other chick, like, we're done listening to your crap. Like, stop crying about it. We're done listening. Like, either leave him, like, and it was definitely like a crap or get off the pot kind of moment, right? Like,
either leave him or get over it. To stop crying about it.
Yeah. And so
I am loving, honestly, like things that you don't know until you know them, like the whole beer ministry wife. Like my impression of her going into this podcast of like, she was there. I like her. Like, I mean, I never really had any interaction with her. I wasn't invited to these things. I didn't participate in moms groups. So like we didn't interact other than like a, hey, how you doing? Good to see you kind of way. But like she never really participated in anything. You know, she attended church, which good for her. And then she comes in and drops all these bombs, like things, you know, we wish we could have said, but we would have gotten in trouble. And she's like, sinner, I can't sit with you. Sinner, just stop crying and leave. Like, I love it.
And that's the thing is like, if I would have said the things that she said, because she was holding people to Tom's standards.
Yeah, totally.
She was doing it. And the only talking to she got was like, well, you know, you should probably say that a little more loving. If I would have said those things, I would have been called into the office so fast. I would have had stuff taken away from me so fast. And so that's why I was constantly in this like,
I love it.
trying to think of the most nice way to say things. And this is where it starts for Brandy and I, of like, because we're aware that like people don't like what we're saying. We're aware that they don't like this accountability that we have surrounding this VBS and everything. And so we start this like, look, we realize we're not for everyone. Like, I know my personality is a little hard to deal with, and that's my cross I have to bear. And and we acknowledge the fact that like, yes, we're holding people accountable, but like, accountability is hard for everyone. And we really start like going to each other. Okay, I need to send this email. Can I read this to you first and make sure it sounds nice? Yeah. Like, okay, maybe we should change this word. I have to call this person. I have to send a text. Can I read this text to you before? Like, I mean, we're double checking with each other constantly to make sure we're saying things in the nicest, most loving way possible, so we don't come off as, as these horrible people. So,
well, I think that like this starts a huge issue, especially for Brandy. Like, you can really see and understand a lot of the things, like, now that you're laying this out, I can really start to kind of see some of the things that like she has said over the years, of like, there's like this level of certain people make it through the system into this pedestal level where they get carte blanche to do whatever it is that they want to do. But then you have people that don't do anything, and they're given that same privilege of the people in that upper echelon. But then you have the people who are actually doing all the work and killing themselves at this high level, and they're being treated less than dirt, And so like, and I think that like, when you're talking about that, like, if you had said the things that Beer Ministry Wife had said, you would have been held to a totally different standard. But you're the one who's putting in all the hours and doing all the work. And this lady comes to church on Sunday, and like, and I can see now how that caused a really big issue for Brandy, and how a lot of things that she's said, even on this podcast or just over the years, like why that would be like she was always calling that stuff out, because she was calling it out. And so, that's crazy. Like, to think about, like, just how it, like, you watch it play out in real life and you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So we give these two, because they get in this big, argument at retreat. Well, we're also, by the time you go to retreat, we're planning VBS. Yeah. We're only a few weeks out of VBS, and so VBS is a little awkward. We're trying to keep them separate from each other, but, it all goes well. Really, honestly, the beer ministry lady wants to be able to do the crafts. She wants to be able to have them all set up and ready ahead of time. And she wants to be able to say, this is what you have to do with the kids, and then other people do it. She doesn't want people to help her set up the stuff. She doesn't want people to help her cut the paper or, any of that. She wants to do all of that herself at home. But she wants to be able to show up at VBS and just tell other people what to do. So Brandy and I are trying to appease her. And so we're like, yep, you can do that. Big Mama doesn't want to serve at VBS, but she wants to hold babies. So we're like, yep, Big Mama, you can come. And like, so all of the moms who have babies or little kids who are not old enough to attend VBS, we have a special, child care room set up for them. But Big Mama still brings them in to do worship. And so basically Big Mama is doing baby VBS, with these, I think she even had like crafts and stuff for that. It was a whole situation. Awesome. And so as much as Brandy and I are trying to, like, we're holding people accountable to these standards, right? When it comes to like discipleship and sharing the gospel and all of this stuff. But then in other instances, we're telling people like, like, as long as you are not going to like come and like bitch at us and be complaining and cry, like whatever, do what you want. Just like, don't cause drama. Right. So one of our biggest things is every year after VBS, everyone leaves and we have to clean every day, right? And it's me, Brandy, and Twyla cleaning after VBS every day. We're done with it, right? Twyla is done with it. Twyla has told us she's done with it, but then like if you say it in front of other people, she's gonna be like, oh no, it's fine. I don't mind. Right. But in reality, we know she's exhausted because she helps at VBS too. So it's not like she's not doing anything and then she just comes in and cleans. Like she's there with the kids full energy all morning too. And then she has to clean up everything. So we make it that every day, here is what you need to do to reset your station, your area for the next day. So all we have to do is go in and spot check stuff and clean the bathrooms at the end of every day, right? Then at the end of VBS, tear down, I have a giant marker board in the lobby and I write down everything that needs done. And I mean everything from take the posters off the wall in the lobby, clear down to check toilet paper and paper towels in the bathrooms. Like, I mean, with the whole gamut of stuff, right? And we say no one leaves until
it's all done.
It's all done. Many hands make for light work, and happy hearts make for joyful servants. And we are like, this is what we're doing. We crank this crap out. And I mean, like, we clean the whole church building in like less than an hour. It was phenomenal because, I mean, you have 80 people there cleaning, right? Like, let's just knock it out and be done with it. It was the fastest we had ever cleaned up VBS ever. And it went so well. Then we did like a survey because we were like, we want to do better. We want to make sure like us leading VBS, we didn't have any blind spots, whatever, like accountability and, all of that kind of stuff. So we send out a survey to everyone who served of like, what did you think of VBS, right? And then we had like a follow-up meeting. And this woman, she hadn't attended the church for very long. I think she was like a friend of someone who came. So she had her daughter and then her daughter's friend or whatever. Well, the girls came up to me and they were like, we are done with our whatever we cleaned. And I said, okay, why don't you girls go in and clean the bathroom? So they went and they did it. They didn't like complain to me or anything. Well, this woman lost her damn mind and was so mad after the fact because I made these two teenage girls clean the bathroom. And that was inappropriate and I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, well, it's not like I made them clean the men's bathroom and clean like a urinal. Like they were cleaning the women's bathroom. Like, and she's like, well, but they didn't know how to clean a toilet. They've never done that before. And I was like, okay, so like
good, they learned something.
Yeah, like, and it's not like they were in there by themselves just fighting for their lives trying to figure it out. Like, I mean, we had people, me and Brandy and Twyla were roaming around and helping and all of this stuff. And so it's like, well, they weren't in there by themselves. I know Twyla was in there with them. But I mean, this lady was mad. She left the church. And I'm not joking. I got called into Tom's office because a woman left the church because I asked her teenage daughter and her friend.
They left the church over that?
Yeah. And Tom surprisingly was not like livid. Like this was the first experience I ever had with Tom where like I got called in and it was like, what is going on with this? Because initially Pastor Younggun handled it and he like tried to get her to stay and tried to like set up a thing where like he could sit down with me and her and we could reconcile and all of that. And she was like, no, I'm done, whatever. So I think Younggun went to Tom, but this was the first time Tom, like when he called me in and said we need to talk about what happened at VBS with this lady, I was preparing myself for an ass chewing. Like I was mentally preparing myself that it was just going to be bad, right? And Tom really was like, you're not always, as a leader, you're not always going to make people happy. And this is the first time Tom ever told me I was a leader. As a leader, you're not always going to make people happy, but stuff has to get done and you have to delegate. And so, do you feel like you did that in the most loving way possible? And I said, I did. And he goes, then you have to dust your feet and let him go.
Wow.
Jesus, would go to town, and he would try to give people the truth.
The Tom list. He was like, good riddance.
Okay.
But she had to be a pain in his side.
No, she had just shown up, like, as we were signing up to do stuff for VBS. She refused to take Master Life and 101 and all of that kind of stuff, and she didn't tithe. Yeah.
She didn't make the Tom's list. He's like, whatever. Good riddance.
He could not have cared less. We don't need her. She doesn't want to, go through the steps. She doesn't want to follow the system. And all you're trying to do is get her to drink the Kool-Aid that we serve to the death here. She refuses to drink the Kool-Aid, which there's some people who refuse to drink the Kool-Aid, but hey, they're at least tithing.
They play the game. Yeah.
So we could let that slide. This chick's not even tithing. So we're fine that you made her mad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's eye-opening right there. I'm like, this lady had to be. You didn't make the dean's list, my dear. Good riddance. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode was brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.